going to movies now has this expectation, like going to Six Flags. Like, you can't just ride a scary roller coaster. It has to go upside down and you're suspended for 6 seconds and then you have to go 90 miles an hour down. They sort of created a bar where the experience has to be something that would not be as satisfying on your television in a streaming service. And also this move towards safety where the expectation of a sequel is that it makes 70% of the original. And in this age of studios having so much debt, you're going to take that bet over an original project.
I'm Bob Safian, and I'm here with Janice Min, co-founder and CEO of The Ankler. Janice, it's great to see you. Last year at this time, we were on the brink of Barbie-Oppenheimer, which juiced the movie industry, a global phenomenon. This year, I don't know, it doesn't seem like there's quite the same buzz and anticipation for anything. Am I feeling that the right way?
I think you're right, Bob. I mean, let me just first establish we're in a weird period in entertainment. We had the strikes last year, and people thought we'd have some big rebound and that entertainment would come flooding back. But in fact, it came sort of limping back. And so what you're seeing this summer, I'm going to guess a lot of listeners of this podcast are suddenly thinking, have I been to the movies this summer? And the answer very much might be no, unless you have kids and you took them to Inside Out too. We have a pipeline problem. Things were not put in production, or things that were in production got pushed back because there was a lot of insecurity around when the strike would end. But we're also in this sort of crisis in Hollywood of franchises, reboots, kind of this retread that, though the audiences are telling us often they don't like it, it keeps getting made. So we had a really grim May at the box office. No one saw Furiosa, which was the Mad Max threequel, the third installment nobody asked for. And at the same time, we had some bombs, as they're called in Hollywood. There was Rebel Moon 2, which they put out even though no one really watched Rebel Moon 1. I mean, the other thing in Hollywood, people tend to also have big feelings. There's lots of emotion around success and failure, and there's definitely a bias towards negativity. So, oh my God, the theatrical is dead. And then comes Inside Out 2, which is its own kind of mini Barbenheimer, already has exceeded $1 billion. And it kind of revealed this pent-up hunger of people who just needed to get into air conditioning. And that's one of the great things movie theaters provide. But also there has not been a ton of children's programming out in the theaters in ages. And Despicable Me 4 is doing quite well as well currently in the theater. So anyway, that's the story of the box office. But I am pretty sure no one's marked in their calendar, I can't wait for opening weekend Friday because I am dying to see, XYZ. Like that kind of monoculture that Hollywood used to drive, it's not happening right now.
How important is the summer season in the year's entertainment cycle? Is it particularly important for the industry?
Summer has always had this mythic spot in the psyche of entertainment. It was where you were going to put out your biggest swing. Basically, you're pouring sometimes up to $250 million on a movie that's the vision of maybe one director and one studio executive. And you put it into theaters and you keep your fingers crossed and hope it's lightning in a bottle. And, we grew up doing this. You go to the movies all summer and it's kind of fun and you plan your weekend around it. But that habit has died now. Some of it is because Hollywood let the habit die when they pivoted to streaming and thought all movies should be on streaming first, or, streaming is a quick second in the window. But it's a little bit like going to movies now has this expectation, like going to Six Flags. Like, you can't just ride a scary roller coaster. It has to go upside down and you're suspended for 6 seconds and then you have to go 90 miles an hour down. And so the experience has to be something that would not be as satisfying on your television in a streaming service. And that has created a very expensive, very high bar. And also this move towards safety where the expectation of a sequel is that it makes 70% of the original. And in this age of consolidation and studios having so much debt, you're going to take that bet over an original project.
You mentioned the streaming platforms. Like, are they looking for summer blockbusters the same way, or is that just sort of a reflex? And do we even know, when so much of their data is kept internally, like what moves the
This
needle
really is
for
a
them?
story about Netflix. Netflix is the one who they went into the business of also releasing what would be called summer movies year round. And you might recall, like, The Gray Man was an attempt to create a
Mm,
sort of a summer level franchise. I don't think there's going to be a Gray Man 2. So you've seen people try to do this sort of eventized streaming movie, but they don't market them. This is something Hollywood still does really well, is the marketing campaign to get something in your face. It's the billboards, it's the subway ads, it's the
hmm.
YouTube pre-roll. And they're very, very good at that and telling the story of that. And Netflix, on the flip side of that, is like, if you like it, you'll find it, or it'll find you on the in the algorithm. So good luck. And that's where they've been very surprised by certain things that took off, like Baby Reindeer. Sometimes the audience will tell you what works in a way that is completely unexpected.
The other news I want to ask you about is the off again, on again
Oh my
Paramount-Skydance deal
God.
with David
Yes.
Ellison, son of Oracle's Larry Ellison, now poised to take over studio. How obsessed is Hollywood about the deal and Ellison?
Okay.
Are you? Is this a big deal?
This has been the longest, most tortured saga. And yeah, and I have a friend who once said of Paramount, like, it's like 3 Mile Island. It's like you can try to clean it up, but there will always be radioactive residue in the soil. So Paramount is like our other legacy studios that are carrying enormous amounts of debt. They let Netflix eat their lunch because everyone here is a little technophobic, and they waited very long. And they also didn't want to give up these incredibly lucrative business models of cable television, affiliate fees, linear advertising, and so they waited, and they lost a ton of money. So Sherry got herself in a corner. My understanding is she has a lot of emotion attached to the company because she had this incredibly complicated, toxic relationship with her father, who had complicated and toxic relationships with many people. And I think David Ellison is almost
Yes.
uniquely built to be the next owner of Paramount. He loves movies. I mean, you can't overestimate the role of having, I think, is your dad that's eighth wealthiest man in the world bankrolling this. I think you also see this as the inevitability of where Hollywood is headed, where you already have Apple, Amazon, Netflix bringing their tech ethos to Hollywood. And I have a hard time imagining that Larry Ellison sits by the sidelines and lets his son play Paramount CEO alone. And so I think you'll probably start to see, so whatever the tech ethos is of Larry Ellison, and I don't think it's a gentle, kind one, begin to take shape at Paramount.
It's another family legacy,
Oh
though,
my
right?
God.
It's like moved from the Redstones to
I
the
mean,
Ellisons.
and
It's
that's
sort
why
of
every
another
one of these
dynasty.
things is a mini succession, and you have to sort of read into the psychodramas of that are going on behind the scenes. It's hard not to. Rich people, they don't dream of owning a packaged goods company. They dream of being in Hollywood. That gives you a relevance and a juice that is much more fun. And for David Ellison, who was this kid who grew up loving movies, and he, as you can see from his most successful projects, he's co-financed with Paramount. These movies like Top Gun and Tom Cruise, and sort of this kind of old school version of of Hollywood blockbusters, and that could be great. But they also talked about $2 billion in everyone's favorite phrase, cost efficiencies, which it essentially means jobs lost and assets sold.
I mean, as I'm hearing you talk about this, like, do you feel like the legacy media companies are at an inflection point? Is there a change coming, or have we already seen the change? The streaming services have done it. Netflix has done it, and these legacy companies are just
Some of the
reacting.
smartest people in town have said to me that what we're going to see in the next few years, this is going to be the rise of the independents. That the studio system, it's like turning around a liner, ocean liner that where the engine's broken, and that if the nimble upstarts will be able to move much more quickly. I mean, the way someone who had visibility to Paramount's books, had described to me that even though you're seeing thousands of layoffs at Paramount, and we've seen thousands of people laid off at Disney and Warner Brothers, that there's still so much more to cut because it's an infrastructure built for another era. And the fast moving
Mm.
independents don't have that burden.
I have to ask you about YouTube. YouTube fascinates me. It remains the most popular streaming platform for younger viewers, despite efforts by Netflix, Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery. Like none seem to have an answer for YouTube's dominance. It feels strange to say it, but do we still underestimate YouTube?
We totally underestimate YouTube. When you look at the amount of time spent on YouTube versus any other streaming platform, I mean, hands down, blows away everything. So they've captured the attention economy, as people say. I think it's hard for Hollywood to think about YouTube as anything more than promotion. You put your trailers on there, you do an announcement saying how many million views a trailer got. But boy, if you think about the levers that a YouTube can switch to turn that into a more premium experience. And I know they tried that and it didn't go very well. But they have so much data at their fingertips now. And also, you're seeing this fundamental shift in the creator economy where creators used to think that Hollywood was the be all end all, that if you became a really huge creator, you might get a show on Hulu or you might get a show on
Right. That was
that was the
the
goal.
goal, right? That was
And
the
now
pinnacle. Yeah.
it's not increasingly for people. You have Mr. Beast doing his $100 million deal with Amazon, and we'll see how that goes. But you also have one of the watershed moments for the creator YouTube Hollywood relationship. There are these huge YouTube stars named Rhett and Link, and they ended up with a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery to do a reality show. It came out, did not do well. They ended up doing basically a 20-minute video rebuttal to Hollywood where they fired Hollywood. And they said, this is what you don't understand. You don't understand how to talk to our audience. You gave us really terrible notes. Your process is awful. And we want to have nothing else to do with you. And we are going to just talk directly to our audience now instead of through you. And I think that's the opportunity when you were talking about the independence, it's that whole the direct to consumer fantasy of you don't need the middleman. And who are these old guy gatekeepers who are trying to tell me how to do my thing? And you're seeing the most successful creators make like ungodly amounts of money in a way that Hollywood probably would not have made possible for them.
I saw that Ashton Kutcher recently made a statement about OpenAI's text to
Yep.
video software, Sora. And he said that the future of movies and entertainment will be viewers giving prompts to software that'll create bespoke content just for them. Like those kinds of ideas, like, do the studios take any of that seriously?
Not yet. And I think if you are at a Disney, you are using AI, but not necessarily calling it AI in special effects. And there is a movie that's coming out in November that's directed by Bob Zemeckis that stars Tom Hanks and Robin Wright Penn. And it's called Here. And it uses AI technology to present them as 20, I think they're in their 20s or 30s. And they released a trailer recently. It's pretty convincing. But AI is it still feels like the future. And I think what isn't fully processed is that it's here. The tools are here. And it's one of these funny things about Hollywood where a lot of people are using AI, but it's like a shameful secret. And Bob, you've talked to people who are on the AI side in Silicon Valley and they're rapacious. I mean, they're not waiting for Hollywood to give them permission.
No, they are moving, and all of it is moving really fast, right? And if you don't start experimenting with it and at least understanding what's going on or trying to, the catch up, as you used the phrase before, it just gets deeper and deeper. The NBA just agreed to a new 11-year, $76 billion deal with NBC, Amazon Prime, and ABC ESPN. Huge increase. This value of live sports keeps climbing. Can the entertainment business model support that
No.
money and still making money on it?
The entertainment business absolutely cannot. And we are living under this delusion that people are just obsessed with mid-season NBA games, and it's going to drive so much viewership and streaming subscription. There is this thing happening, and again, this is one of the things Hollywood is susceptible towards is big solutions. And so you're looking at, oh my God, we thought we were going to pivot to streaming, but we've run out of streaming subscribers. And it turns out people just want to subscribe to Netflix and maybe if they have money in their household, one more service. So oops, we spent all that money. We're losing $435 million a quarter. Oh my God, the silver bullet is sports. People love live. People love sports. And so I think they're looking for
Mm.
anything that keeps people from churning out of their subscription. Every day, these streaming services are fighting to have you not cancel. But the flip side of this, they're going to spend so much money, record numbers on the NBA, where players are getting 51% of the money. And so you're seeing their salaries increase to, $50 million deals, crazy amounts. But guess who's going to pay for that? The consumer. So that's why you're seeing also these increases in streaming services in price. And anyone who is following anything or has been to the grocery store knows that people do not want to spend more on anything right now. So it feels a little bit like a perfect storm coming in. It's also kind of rebuilding the cable idea that you're going to assume that people are going to pay. There are enough people who are going to pay for a particular part of your service that only appeals to a small number of those people. And that's the old cable
Hmm.
model where you're going to get Fox News because you can't live without your Fox News, or ESPN because you can't live without it. And now they are taking a big gamble that people can't live without their NBA.
As you mentioned, sort of nichifying audience, I was thinking about your personal career journey. Like you remade the magazine Us Weekly, leaning into celebrity culture for the broadest mass
Yes.
market. And then you remade business focused coverage, leading Hollywood Reporter and Billboard. And now at Ankler, you're going even deeper on the business of entertainment. But this was like a transition from serving a mass market to a more targeted market. How purposeful was that for you? Or was that just where sort of the opportunity or the possibility
I
was?
would say it was both. I mean, Us Weekly, for those who lived through the Us Weekly era as adults or near adulthood, that was almost like a mass hysteria in America around. Like Bob, you probably had an opinion about J Lo and Ben the first round, or you might have had an opinion about Jennifer Aniston, Angelina Jolie, and Brad Pitt. Like these were like very smart people who were under the spell of this celebrity culture in a way that just disappeared. And so this was, pre-social media.
Mm.
And so a publication like Us Weekly could become one of the biggest publications in America, feeding this sort of voracious desire for celebrity. Um, and that was reaching, I mean, you know, 14 million people a week, I believe. And then going to the Hollywood Reporter, that was definitely like, okay, but can you do something special that super serves like an audience, but that also has reach out to the bigger universe? And that worked. I think the addition of programmatic advertising into publishing did not serve anyone well, kind of turning your fate over to platforms you don't control. It was problematic. And so with the Ankler, so Richard Rushfield, my partner, he had amassed this very specialized, rarefied audience. I would say trade coverage was very late to the impact of the disruption in Hollywood. And Richard was owning it. He was telling people the truth. And I saw who his subscriber list was. It was unbelievable. And I said to him, like, would you want to do something more with this? And he said yes. What we couldn't have predicted was how much the disruption was going to accelerate. And I joined Richard before Warner Brothers and Discovery merged, before the strikes, before Netflix had its famous stock tank and rebound. And so the disruption has been sort of wilder and bigger, but it still has required speaking this very unvarnished truth to an audience about what's happening in the business. One of the things, of course, as someone who just loves media, that concerns me is, yes, we're all going into our corners. We are serving a really small segment of the audience, but it is a business that works. It's profitable. We grow a ton every month. The entertainment business is not just films and television that are being made in Hollywood. And the entertainment business now encompasses so much more. So we hope to grow along with where entertainment goes, but so far, so good.
So where we are now, like what's at stake for the entertainment business, for Hollywood? How should we think
Oh,
about that
God.
looking
Okay, so I
ahead?
think one of the things that's at stake is the future of the legacy studios. And when I say legacy studios, I mean these sort of brand names that people know. It's Disney, it's Warner Brothers Discovery, and it's Paramount. They all have crushing debt, and they all have streaming services that Disney's has done well. Everyone else is sort of struggling. And if you're Disney and you've seen your market of children's programming and children's films get eaten away by Super Mario Brothers, which was released by Universal, you're saying, oh my God, we no longer own the children's space. That's not great. And Disney has had this long history of being able to create a lifelong partnership from the time you're a kid and the brand means something and you can build this universe. But Disney's future is in theme parks and live experiences. And that's where you're seeing this big shift in Hollywood. Netflix has started Netflix experiences. Universal has gone big in on theme parks. So, I would hate to see the industry become an Amazon, Apple, Netflix town. I don't think that's fully healthy. Um, but for anyone who spends their day shopping on Amazon or going to Whole Foods, you can see how they're just better resourced, have better customer data, and you can kind of see the march continuing.
Yeah, in some ways, it's a great era to be a consumer, even if you're not a business, because there's so much content out there. On the other hand, if we're not taking risk with the content we're creating, then maybe you're getting lots of options of the
Well,
same
Bob, I
flavor.
want to ask you, what shows are people telling you this summer? Oh my gosh, have you checked out this or that? Even that sort of era of streaming is blown past us. I'm watching Presumed Innocent on Apple, but no one else in the world I know is watching that. I'm watching The Bear season 3, and some people I know are watching it, but it's not that all consuming. You're caught up in the wave, and isn't that fun? And you can talk about it with people. So, yeah,
Yes.
that's a bummer.
Well, Janice, this has been great. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
for
no,
doing
thanks.
it.
This was fun.